Welcome to the Healing Grove podcast. I'm Dr. Kristin, an integrative holistic family physician, author of Life After Lyme, and host in this virtual space of learning, healing, and growing. I believe humans are like trees, and our physical limb is only one of many. Health on all limbs of the tree, emotional, conceptual, social, spiritual, is absolutely required for the whole tree that is you to be vibrantly well. I created the Healing Grove podcast as a place to showcase some of the world's best integrative and holistic medicine, to expose you to transformative tools and mindset shifts for all limbs of your tree. I hope you enjoy our conversation in the Healing Grove today as much as I enjoyed having it. Hi, Anja.
Hello, Kristin.
I'm so happy to be in this conversation with you. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. It's going to be fun. So everybody, I want to introduce you to my friend Anja Korber. She's a musician, a mom, and a craniosacral therapist. She healed herself from 2 mysterious complex conditions, which she's going to tell us about using the modalities that she teaches now to others, and hopefully will give us a sneak preview of. And as a mom, she was also able to bring her gifts to bear on a child of hers who had some developmental delays. And she lives in constant awe of the unlimited healing potential that we all possess within. So thank you for being here, Anja.
Thank you.
And before we get into it, I was hoping you would give us a little bit of background and tell us your story of what brought you to learning about these tools that have been so effective for your family and yourself and your patients.
Yes, so your big question is why I am doing what I'm doing. And simply put, the answer is quite simple. I became a mom. And I became responsible for another human, providing a nurturing and safe environment. And now, after being blessed with 3 children, I take this job very seriously, and I place big emphasis on healthy nutrition, limited screen time, outdoor play, movement, a healthy routine, and a heartfelt connection. And I'm still learning every day. But my son was very limited in his speech until the age of 5. He had all these sensory processing challenges. He had no eye contact, low energy, the whole cascade that could lead into the autism diagnostics. And luckily, I truly was led to beautiful people showing me the amazing results through nutrition and developmental movements. And my child just changed within 6 months, and nobody thought that he would be able to sustain in a normal schooling environment, and now he's thriving. So my son is actually my gift in showing me the incredible world of authentic healing. And this is my driving force, because you will relate, Kristin, you've got children as well. If your child heals, and if the brain lights up and a child makes eye contact with you for the first time, he starts speaking full sentences that you can understand. And once you receive this first hug and the first I love you after 8 years, it's just, I don't know, there are no words to describe this feeling. And I want to give this feeling to all the families out there, and I want to empower them that it is possible. That's why I am soldiering on and staying strong for this powerful message. And I've seen how he can heal, and we all can on all levels.
Wow. That touches my heart to hear. And having met him, and
yes.
We should say that I can vouch for Anja's commitment to her children and to her family. I had the benefit of getting to stay with them when I traveled to South Africa for a few days. And I will tell you, Anja, that you inspired me so deeply, just watching how much your kids love one another and how connected your family is and how everyone loves to be outside and there really were no screens. I felt really, I felt really dirty, like bringing my phone into the house. And it just was like, I was like, oh, this is who I want to be, this woman. Like, I need to take my game to the next level. I'm raising chickens now, by the way, and I rebuilt.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, because
done.
I just was like, yes, this is what I talk about all the time. I've dabbled in it, but I need to really step my game up. So thank you for that inspiration.
Oh, with pleasure. The inspiration was just on my side with you. I've actually, you know what I'm cooking now all the time? It's the dish that you made for me, my first breakfast with you. It's the spinach with onions and tomatoes, and it is my favorite dish to this day.
Oh my gosh.
And the kids have started eating it as well.
Oh, my work is done.
Yeah, and I was never brave enough to give it to them because I wasn't brave enough to face their faces, but they loved it. So thank you.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will hear this and say, well, kids can heal. Kids are resilient, right? Kids bounce back from stuff. What about adults? Do you find that the tools you use to heal your son have also been effective in your life and in your adult patients?
Yes, well, I've not only been on this path for my son. In retrospect, I've actually always been on this path for my own healing. And I think being a musician and playing as a flautist in an orchestra took quite a toll on my stress levels. It's highly competitive. We practice 6 to 8 hours for this one moment. So I think my psyche and my body already got a knock there. And I also suffered from quite a deep, severe depression, not like the usual depression, I just don't feel like getting out of bed, but to the point that I wasn't able to shower anymore or brush my teeth or do anything. It was extreme. So my biggest hope was always when I was in that state that hopefully it's night again and I can sleep and just tune out. So this whole development of a stressful life as a musician and then diving deeply into this depressive state, surely also triggered by false medication. I think they've medicated me too much, or I don't know, it doesn't matter. Has led to a condition called heart arrhythmia. And sometimes heart arrhythmia is not really life-threatening, but in my case, it showed up at the age of 35 after the birth of my second child. And out of nowhere, my heart would race to 220, 250. I knew that at that time because I was a runner and I ran with this watch that showed me my pulse. And nobody believed me, even the doctors. And I was persistent to tell them, listen, there is something really wrong with me. I'm so exhausted. And that's not only from having 2 children. So they equipped me with a special monitor. It's probably more developed now. And they sent me out into the world. And when I felt my heart racing again, I just, you will know about this. I held the monitor against my heart and then it recorded it. It's quite amazing. So I sent this in to the doctor's room and I got a call 5 minutes later and an appointment at the specialist.
So I have a question.
Yes.
I have a fantasy that when you got that call, on the other end, there was a human who said, I wanted to tell you that I'm really, really sorry for not believing you when you told me you were having these sensations, but you're right. Like, that's just my fantasy. Maybe we should just
Wow.
I kind of think it didn't.
No, I actually was driving in the car and then the doctor called and said, there's something seriously wrong with you. You have to come in now and we have to make an appointment with the specialist. So I didn't cause an accident. I just pulled over and was just in my shock state. No, but yeah, sorry, Kristin.
Well, I'm sorry that, because I heard you in the beginning saying that people didn't really believe you. And I always like to have that loop closed. And unfortunately, it doesn't get closed a lot. So on behalf of doctors who didn't believe you, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. But it's true, Kristin. You feel disempowered. Yeah. This feeling of being disempowered, as well as, it resonates me. If you give birth here in South Africa, the Caesar rate is so high, and so many women are disempowered in their choice of birthing their children naturally. Yeah, it's disempowerment, and we need to step up and empower everybody that they can. Yeah, that they can empower themselves. There is help. They are connected.
So how did you find that empowerment for yourself in this story with your heart?
So with my heart, obviously I looked for later for the underlying causes, and I met craniosacral therapists, and a very good craniosacral therapist that didn't know my condition. I got an appointment with her, and the first thing that she saw was something in my heart. So she didn't know of my condition, nothing. She just touched my body and said, Anja, we need to, if you allow me, release the trauma in your heart. And I was like, oh my goodness. And the same thing happened again when I saw another very well-trained craniosacral therapist, and immediately she took up that resonance, which was amazing to me. And having a craniosacral session and allowing the release to happen, because the therapist cannot heal the client. It is the client who heals him or herself, which is also, again, empowering, because we hold that innate healing ability, and the craniosacral therapist only facilitates this. So as a therapist, we need to take back our ego, keep it nicely in check, not wanting to fix, but really trust that the cause for the health condition and how to resolve it lies within the client. And I was just so tired of carrying this burden around. It was like a heavy weight, when you feel so heavy. And you do use a lot of energy during the day if you're stuck with pain. Mm-hmm. And I just felt these loving hands that had no agenda. The unconscious feels this. And I could just let go. And it is the most beautiful experience if trauma is lifted from your tissues. And obviously it's accompanied by a lot of emotions, but this release and being held in this release without judgment was the most amazing experience. And I was, this is awesome. We can lift ourselves, and we can free ourselves, and I could bounce again. So I had quite a few craniosacral sessions, and I love releasing my stuff. It is just the coolest thing.
So I've had sessions in the past, including one from you, and I know what craniosacral is, but a lot of people who are listening might not. I wonder if you're willing to give us kind of an overview of what the treatment is.
Sure. So craniosacral therapy has its origin in osteopathy. And Dr. Ableger was the one who further conceptualized craniosacral therapy and taught it systematically. He did a lot of research at the Michigan University. He was an osteopathic physician, and he brought it out into the world like we know it today. And craniosacral therapy explores the mobility of the skull and the pelvic bones, ease in the fascial system, and our craniosacral rhythm. So our craniosacral rhythm is basically initiated by fluid that surrounds the brain and the spinal cord. And this cerebral spinal fluid is so vital because it cushions our brain inside the skull against impact, and it brings the nutrients it needs and detoxifies. And it's vital that this cerebral spinal fluid flows freely throughout the system. Now, imagine this. This is the skull or the head, and inside the fluid is produced, and there is a volume increase. And then when it's drained out of the system, there is a volume decrease. And this increase and decrease creates a wave-like motion throughout the entire body. It is so beautiful and so mesmerizing to feel. And that subtle movement, that is what we palpate or feel. And should there be a restriction in this flow, we can locate the restriction and hopefully release it with the client.
And just to clarify, again, people who don't know this, we're not doing a lumbar puncture. We're not checking pressures. You've got your hands on the head or on the pelvis or on some part of the body.
Yes.
And you're able to sense that internal rhythm and movement of fluid.
What is quite amazing, the lighter the touch, the more you feel. And that's a concept that especially physiotherapists who take craniosacral classes, I mean, I love physios, but they are trained differently and more into more intense touch. There's quite an unlearning that needs to happen to feel the craniosacral rhythm. So yeah, it's a very light touch, but extremely powerful. So I often have clients come for their first session, and I really am very gentle, especially in the first session. And I take myself way back. You see this, I've got a feather as well, tattooed on my arm saying, I need to be very gentle. Can you see?
You can see the feather, it's pretty, yeah.
Yeah, and my touch is super light, but then they come back to me and say, Anja, I had so many responses, and it always amazes me because I really did not impose myself. So that is pretty cool.
Well, it gets back to that notion that you mentioned earlier, that the therapist is not affecting healing. They're simply holding space, facilitating the client's self-healing.
Yes. Yeah. And we tune into this rhythm. I think it's by tuning into this rhythm, and the subconscious of the client feels held and accepted. So what Apleja always says, you've got an inner physician, and when the inner physician feels heard, the inner physician can heal or do the healing work.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that bears repeating. Can you say that again?
So when your inner physician is heard, that's when authentic healing begins. And that resonates with what we spoke about previously about empowerment. All too often are we disempowered, and then what do? There is no way forward. So it's all about this empowerment and being heard. And yeah,
beautiful. So you were going to show us some things, I think, but I also wonder if you want to talk about the surfing incident.
Yes, sure, because that's a different, it's a different kind of injury. So last year, the wave took me down into the ocean floor with my entire body in extension. So basically my body was straight, and the wave rammed my entire body into the floor, causing a compression. Yeah, so ouch. Obviously my entire knee needed reconstruction, the ligaments, the muscles were torn, etc. But I was completely compressed from the cranium down. And slowly I was having those sleep problems, and this was my gift in life, put my head on a pillow and I can sleep. And that gift was gone. And I thought, I'm losing my mind. And I went back to the doctor and they said, you need to take psychotics because I think you are depressed again. Lovely. And you need to take this sleeping pill and this sleeping pill. And I went, whoa. And I just connected to myself. And luckily, a few weeks down the line, a craniosacral course was happening in Cape Town. And first I didn't want to go because of all my conditions and I felt so terrible and sorry for myself and in pain. But I got a kick again and I enrolled. And then when you take a class, you go through those different techniques. And yeah, fate just gave me the perfect technique. So I was chosen for the sphenoid technique. It's a fancy word, but it is a bone that is in the middle of your cranium, a butterfly bone. It's beautiful. And I was laying on that table and Lisa, this Rogers, a craniosacral therapist, amazing. She just touched my cranium for about 10 seconds. She didn't know of my surfing incident and said, this person is completely compressed. Are there any asymmetries in her face? So she lifted my sphenoid bone out of compression very gently. I mean, it was hardly palpable. And after 3 minutes, I started shaking like an eel, like an electrified eel on this table, having this emotional release. And I went home, slept the first night for 4 hours, the second night for 8 hours again, and my insomnia never returned. So that was just amazing. And that took 3 minutes to resolve.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is wow.
So I, and probably plenty of other people listening right now, are like, okay, I want to know what she's doing. Like, what's she having? Are you willing to share a tool or a self-help technique that people can use right now on themselves?
Sure. So what we can do is basically find our craniosacral rhythm. If you've never felt it before, I think that's a cool thing to investigate and even practice it. If you don't feel it the first time, that's okay. And we can do that if you're up to it.
That sounds amazing.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So
wait, before we start, my doctor hat comes out.
Okay.
Is there anybody who's watching who shouldn't do this or who needs extra support? Should we be lying down? Should we have a crash cart or 911 on hand?
You're funny.
I just need to ask.
No, it's really, if you're sitting in a chair, you are safe. If you want to lie down for this, you're welcome. Take the position that you feel more comfortable in. Obviously, you need to stay with me and stay seated, but everybody else can just go and lie down.
Don't mind me. I'll be on the floor for the next 3 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so can we start?
Please.
Okay. So fun exercise first is to basically feel for all those different rhythms in your body. So not only your craniosacral rhythm, but your pulse. So let's just find our pulse first on the side of your neck and tune into that pulsating motion. Is it fast or is it slow? And now add a breath to it. So inhale and exhale. Slow your breathing if you can. And now release your pulse. And find your lower rib cage. And touch where it's comfortable for you, and feel for your breath. Slow your breath down even more. And now we're sending a powerful message to the body that we are safe. And we are releasing all these wonderful healing chemicals into our system by breathing deeply. You can release your hold and carry on with your breath. And now onto the craniosacral rhythm. We can take our hands and place them lightly onto our thighs, very gently. Blend in with the tissues, with your legs, with your thigh. You may feel warmth, tingling, or even buzzing. Or you may feel nothing, which is also perfectly fine. Breathe in and out. And now lighten your hands a little bit more, like a lily pad on the pond, just floating on your thighs. And invite the craniosacral system or the rhythm to show itself to you. So the lighter we go, the easier it is to feel. And what you might be feeling is an inward movement of your thighs, very gently, followed by an outward movement. And the more you tune into your craniosacral rhythm, the more it will show itself and can be felt. Take another deep, deep breath. And gently open your eyes. Okay. That was just a very quick example of how to tune into your craniosacral rhythm. It's a form of meditative process, actually. Yeah, and one gets better and better at it, like everything else.
So I have a question about that.
Yes.
So there were different rhythms that you walked us through. There was the
Yes.
pulse, which had a certain frequency, right? Maybe 60 to 100 beats per minute is normal. Probably should be lower, right, at rest. And then there was breathing.
Yes.
And I found that when I put my hands on my thighs, I felt like I was bobbing a little bit, but to my pulse. And I couldn't tell if that was the cranial rhythm or if that was my pulse again. You know, I could feel my hands wanting to move up and down, but it was really the rhythm that I associate with my heartbeat.
Yeah.
Is the cranial rhythm different from that? And is it usually faster or slower?
It is a lot slower. So it goes in a cycle of 6 to 12 seconds per minute, which means that I'm going to shift the screen a little bit. So it's basically what it does. It's an outward movement and a going back into midline movement. Yeah, let's just take our hands to exemplify that again. So the entire body, if this is your midline, the entire body does this expansive, we're exaggerating big time now. This expansion as well with your legs and a coming back to your core and midline. Now I'm shifting a little bit because I'm following the camera. So it's a slight, so if you would have had your hands on your thighs, what can be felt, and it's if you don't feel it the first time, that's absolutely normal. You can feel a slight going inhalation and a slight exhalation. Inhalation, yes, and a slight exhalation. I like to teach it on the thighs because we are in a position that, in a relaxed position. Another way of teaching is putting your hands on your cranium. Very lightly though, we tend to press on the cranium, which then you don't feel it as well. So a very light touch. So connect to that top of the head and make it very, very light. And see if you can feel like an expansion, as if you would blow up a balloon. And then slowly the air is released again. So again, the lighter you go, the more you will feel. And have the intention in your heart of feeling the craniosacral rhythm. And normally the amplitude will become bigger. So the inhalation phase and the exhalation phase will become wider. And if you think you're imagining things, or you think you feel it and think it can't be, but that's exactly it, then you've got it. One needs to learn to trust what you get. It is there, it is real.
Right, and that I think goes into the the notion of practice and self-acceptance in the practice, and not beating yourself up about it if you can't feel it right away.
Definitely, everything is okay. And when I go on trainings, and we always I have to feel this now, and the more we say we have to, the less you feel. So it is a constant learning of just surrendering, and just letting the field, what they say in quantum physics, which is so cool now, all the science around it, and it relates so much to craniosacral therapy. We've got, if quantum physics speaks of the field, like Bruce Lipton, he says everything, the entire universe is made out of energy. That's also a nice picture to have in mind. If you feel for your rhythm, then we've got the same thing in craniosacral therapy. We speak of it as the wider field that we connect to, especially when we hold a client. We need, our sincere intuition is to connect to the wider field, so that the inner physician of the client can do the healing work. And it's pretty cool that quantum physics and craniosacral therapy have the same parallels, or we all do actually. We all in the same boat, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And so I guess in the last few minutes, I would love to hear what additional words you might have, anything we missed for this group of people who are all in the same boat with. What would you have them know or take away?
Well, like we said, be empowered, make the choice, be brave, and step out of the conventional paradigm. And trust that you are connected to something bigger than you. It is always there, it's always around you, and you can access that innate healing potential. It is there for you. And
Such a beautiful
bless
message.
everybody. Yeah.
Thank you, Anja. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Kristin, for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Healing Grove podcast. If you liked it, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to deepen your experience further, consider grabbing a copy of the Healing Grove Playbook. With journal prompts for this podcast and 41 others, it's the perfect place to record your learnings, keep track of the tools you explore, and reflect on your own experience. Finally, it's important to mention that even though I am a doctor, nothing you hear on this podcast, whether from myself or my guests, constitutes medical advice. Any intervention you try should always be discussed with and supervised by a trusted member of your own healing team. Thanks for listening, and see you next time in the Healing Grove.